See it for yourself. Organized crime. We won't be able to prosecute ourselves out of this mess, says the NPA. It is an admission. We don't have to argue. South Africa is a failed state. Now we're sitting with Petro SA is owned by the Central Energy Fund, is owned by the Republic of South Africa. You have the Republic of South Africa as an organized crime state, by definition, under RICO and also under the Global Magnitsky Act. They must all stay away from the polls. They mustn't cast one ballot. Because, in my view, I have no political aspirations. I think all politics are dirty. I think the whole of Parliament's captured. My personal view is it doesn't matter what label is sitting in the benches, they're all captured. Because I'm going to demonstrate that there's two reasons why South Africa is in this mess. Only two reasons. The police are corrupt and part of the organized crime system, and it's a closed loop. And the National Prosecuting Authority is also part of it.
Welcome to IG World Network, where we go around the world giving you the latest in the world of news. I've got a guest here with me this afternoon. He does not need no introduction at IG World Network. He is taking us to court. He's taking us to the police. He tried to stop us from airing some of his stories. They've tried to stop him from his stories being aired by this channel. However, he's succeeded in all of them. Hence, we've brought him back, and he's still going to share with us with all the investigations that he's been doing around the African continent, in South Africa in particular, but for over a period of time. Mr. Johann Roodt, welcome to IG World Network.
Hello, Mandla. Thank you for having me again.
I feel like I should shake your hand again.
Much appreciated.
And say I'm glad that you are still alive
So
after
am
the
I,
last
and
interview.
so are a few other people as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very gracious. I appreciate it.
Good to have you again, Johann. How has been the life after almost a year and a couple of months since we had an interview with you?
Well, Mandla, I can only say you can't script this stuff. It's surreal. It's beyond. It defies belief. It's totally crazy. It's been heavy going. It's been rough going. As you know, there's been, well, you may know, most people know, there's been 4 attempts to silence me already to date. And I have to live a very, very careful life. There's a lot of people in this country that don't know and don't like what we're doing. But it's good. Since the last interview that we've had, many more victims have come forward. And the stories are just coming out. It's horrendous what's happening to people. People are being butchered, they're being plundered, they're being assaulted, they're being threatened with death. It's just absolutely... South Africa, I'm going to expose today, I'm going to expose that South Africa, by definition, is an organized crime state. I'm not saying it's just a failed state. It is that too, by definition, not by opinion. It is a failed state. It is also, by definition, an organized crime state.
Before we get into that, Johann, I just want to find this out. There was a very interesting email you sent to one of the law firms that was representing one of the banks.
Oh,
we
yes,
just wanted to make a follow-up on that one.
Yes.
To say, how did it, how far did it go? Because we were all told that by now we should be in orange overalls.
If look, there's been a number of threats by a number of law firms. If my memory serves me correctly, that would have been Weber Wenzel, and that would have been ABSA. It's an absolute joke. I used language I'm not given to swearing, so I had to choose my words very carefully. But I called, it's a closed loop, it's an entire system. It includes the judiciary, it includes attorneys, it includes advocates, it includes the masters of the High Court, it includes the liquidation industry, it includes generally speaking, the legal profession in South Africa. It includes the sheriffs, it includes the whole lot. I must have sent, I would say, at a guess, 6 or 7 emails that I included everybody. I mean, we're talking judges. We talk multiple judges, more than 10, who are directly criminally implicated. And of course, Absa Bank. And let's start with names there. First of all, our group, the Australian-New Zealand Chemical Group, was targeted by a Greek mafiosi by the name of Charles Christodoulou. His real name is Karalambos Christodoulou, who identified some of our properties for plundering and targeting way back when. I would go back as about 2006, 2007. He first utilized a black woman who was my former partner's second wife. They had captured him. Her name is Temperance Goldwana. Between Temperance Goldwana and Christodoulou, they utilized the police in Flagstaff to intimidate and threaten and try to ruin the entire business, basically to cut all the income sources to actually get the companies, because they were all linked, to get them to lose power and to lose their traction in order to actually close in. That didn't work. And then Charles Christodoulou approached via attorney Andrew Johnson from the firm Johnson and Partners in Umhlanga Rocks. Fairly prestigious firm. Andrew Johnson was a former specialist police officer before he became an attorney. He then approached me through my former attorney, Andre Kitching of the firm GDLK in Pinetown, requested a meeting acting for and on behalf of Charles Christodoulou. I have an affidavit to that effect. I don't want to burden you with all of this. This is all coming out in the wash now. And the words went, the narrative went along that he wanted the facilitation of a meeting between myself and Charles Christodoulou to possibly come to a mutually beneficial arrangement regarding 2 properties, which is Earth 86 Flagstaff, where we had done, well, we in 2019 we came to the close of 3 5-year lease periods. So it had gone 5 years, 5 years, 5 years with the ShopRite Group, the ShopRite Limited Group. They'd put a checkers in there. And Charles Christodoulou is very involved and very connected with the top senior management in the ShopRite Group in the affidavit. And the other one, Earth 273, had a filling station on very, very lucrative, which we had already concluded basically deals with a major petroleum company. Their estimation there was with minor revamps, we would be pumping 800 to 1 million litres a month there. Bearing in mind that I was one of the pioneers in the petroleum industry that started white sites. In other words, petroleum stations that had ceased or had run their leases with the majors, we would then buy or lease those filling stations. We would then brand them and revamp them all at our own cost. So in the RAS system of what the fuel margin is made up, we would get a much, much bigger margin of fuel than any filling station that you would stop at. I mean, much bigger. We also had our own fleet of tankers that we did deliveries with. So we got the whole lot. We got the wholesale, retail, the whole this. We were not beholden to any petroleum companies. And where I stand right now, it's about R6.80 per litre that our prejudice is just on the one station per month. You do the numbers. Let's work at 800,000. Let's go middle, between 800 and 1 million. Let's go 900,000 litres at, let's say, R6.70 per litre. throw into that the model works that for every litre sold, your convenience store does 2 rand at a GP margin of between 34 and 37%. You're printing money, brother. You're printing 7 million plus per month. That's one filling station. We're at 3.
Okay. Before you lose me, I just wanted to check this fact with you. The case, which is the Flagstaff case.
Yes.
Did they proceed with it, or it's still stagnant today?
Okay. No. What then happened is this now makes this whole thing very. I mean, Blacklist hasn't got a patch on this. There's nothing you've seen. There's no series you've ever seen on television that has a patch on this. Because we then were left with no choice, because Temperance Godwana's half her family worked in Flagstaff Police, it turned out, and because we couldn't get the police to actually act. There's a collection that is in that we sued in the Pretoria High Court, and we had started a legal action for damages. At that time, I think it was 2013 or 14, then on the smaller margins and everything, and with the filling station only being impeded to an extent but still functioning, our opening salvo there started at 100 million. That was what we started the suing of that. It is now has to be exponentially altered, but that is where the state and the mechanisms of the state and the police itself, with the benefit of hindsight, that's where all that started. Because I believe it's 42 or 43 high-ranking police officers, including General Abaya was actually included in that. We're talking Ria Pieja at that stage. She took over, I think it was from Bheki Cele, because you know they move them sideways so often you don't. It's difficult to keep track on them. But 6 or 7 separate cases had been filed with case numbers. To date, from I think 2010-12, we haven't even had an SMS of an IO being appointed.
Okay. Just that, on that, I wanted to get that in terms of the case. Do we have the case numbers that are registered?
I do.
Are they registered? And do you have
this one, yes. If you stay
so
with,
that we put them up there.
yeah, I will give you all of this. This is in the Pretoria High Court.
I'm saying this in the background because in your introduction you mentioned that the country or South Africa, it's not even a failed state.
Yes,
it's
an organized crime, syndicated state.
That is scaring the hell out of me because,
it should.
You know, we have the judiciary, we have the police system services that is working in this country. People get arrested every day.
Who told you it's working?
I mean, we see people
You're
getting
dreaming.
arrested every day.
No. The mafia, the cops are the mafia. So is the NPA.
Wow.
I'm not making allegations.
Wow.
I'm making accusations. Let's get that clear.
Okay.
Right.
So they will have the right to answer for themselves
Yes.
in terms of the accusations or allegations
Oh,
that
yeah,
have been
no,
put before
sure.
them.
No, there's absolutely no
Okay, what
problem.
is the case number?
I'm trying to find that one. Now, remember, this is in the Pretoria High Court.
It's in the Pretoria High Court now.
Yes. Ricky Erasmus has enrolled it on case lines again.
Okay.
We believe that when we filed that, all the other things started kicking into place to prevent that from going on.
Okay.
The press carried several articles about me. You can do the research. It was on News 24 and a lot of other things. Lord.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay,
that's
I'll
fine,
give it to
Johann.
you.
But now, tell me, what is the affidavit that has been disposed at the highest court now?
Okay. Now what is happening is this particular letter was sent to General Abaya personally.
Okay.
It is dated the 15th of August. You will have it. He has read it. And what this is said, he was informed because I and this now comes back to the cases in the Grahamstown High Court. There were 4 cases there where our group was absolutely, totally, fraudulently sued by Absa Bank. We didn't owe Absa any money. They were put to the burden of proof and to show that we owed them money. This was all because of Charles Christodoulou now having failed to negotiate a mutually beneficial deal on the 2 properties he desired. That having failed, he then, with Andrew Johnson, attorney Andrew Johnson and Candy Hilliard, used all their connections at Absa head office, starting with Liz van der Walt, then John Pretorius, then Heike Meyer, then Martinus Janssen van Rensburg, all of them. I engaged them. I said, what you're doing here is completely wrong. You are alleging that one of the companies in the group, Fantastic View Properties, is indebted to Absa Bank to the tune of, call it, say, 11 million rand for a bank guarantee that was given for Shell Petroleum. This is where it gets really interesting. Follow me closely. The major shareholder at all times of Fantastic View Properties was my former best friend, Stanley Goldwana. Very charismatic man. Had a law degree, 10 years my senior. Had a law degree, had a degree in Afrikaans. He used to be mayor of Flagstaff for 4 terms. He was the chairman of the then Magwati Corporation, now completely defunct, of course. And I did not know that this second wife of his, Temperance, had captured him. He contracted AIDS. I didn't know that. And he was totally captured by Temperance Goldwana and her family, and they wanted to asset strip him. Now, the 2 properties in question, our companies had 100-year leases that was given. Because in 2002, 2003, we saved probably, I think, 10 or 12 of his properties, which Absa Bank was going to sell out. There was 3 days left. It was then not called Absa, it was called Meeg Bank, M-E-E-G, but it was another label of Absa. I then bonded some of our properties and borrowed and hocked everything that I could. I negotiated the payment of the story with, of all these debts with Van Nemeth and Hart, old man Hart, I think himself, and the properties were saved. In return for that, Stanley then, we became very, very close friends and very good confidants and very charismatic person. We became very good friends, and over a period of time, his first wife died, Temperance Goldwana, and she was into mumbo jumbo and throwing bones and cutting chicken heads and intimidating everybody. Very aggressive, very horrible woman. But she became buddies with Charles Christodoulou. Of course, she wanted to steal these 2 properties, and Charles Christodoulou, the Greek mafiosi from Kokstad, had the means. So they joined forces.
So they joined forces against
Against our
Australia
group.
and group, Australia and New Zealand, that's correct?
Yes.
And then they are now becoming like, I would say, state witnesses against what the process.
No, they're not state witnesses. They're accused. They're the accused.
They are the accused person. I just want us to get the proper logic in terms of the story.
Yeah. So what Charles then did is he went via Andrew Johnson and Candy Hilliard, and they went via Absa Bank and alleged that Fantastic View was indebted to Absa Bank. But they had set that one up very nicely. What had happened was Absa Bank's Clive Pillay called me into Umhlanga office. He was our personal banker, and said that no problem. This facility of 11 million for Shell to buy fuel on a 30-day account had been organized by Stanley Goldwana. Our relationship had started souring a little bit at that stage. Remember, he had other businesses too, so we weren't sitting in the same office. He was based in Flagstaff, I was based in Port Shepstone and elsewhere. So it's not like we saw each other on a daily basis. He was very busy. He also had a coffin manufacturing business, and he had a funeral undertaking business. He was a very astute businessman. And so I went in, and they put a pile of papers like this in front of me and said, no problem. And I knew at that stage, I said, well, where's Stanley? And they said, no, don't worry, they'll sort it out. I'm assigned so long. I signed all those papers. And they said that they would organize for Stanley to come in and to sign, but, you know, no problem, carry on. I carried on, and we started ordering fuel because we had been dealing with Petro SA prior to that. They had set this thing up so nicely that for 3.5 months, Petro SA didn't supply us with fuel.
Let me understand. Stanley Goldwana is your business partner in this deal?
In one company.
In one company. But when you go for sureties in terms of signing for that, you go on your own. How does that happen?
That's exactly where the problem came in. That's where the deception came in. Because for anything to be legally binding, if you and I are in a business together and we want to go to a bank and we want to negotiate any facility, you and I both sign those papers, or there's a resolution put in place, normally drawn up by the bank itself, that says this and this and this and this and this is how it's going to work, this is the terms and conditions. Mandla signs and Johann signs. It's a resolution. We demanded the resolution of the claimed indebtedness. There's no resolutions.
Now, are you taking this matter to court now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Is the one that the affidavit that has been disposed by your lawyers at the High Court?
No. There's one matter in the civil court in the Pretoria High Court, which is the police matter, where the police didn't act and prejudiced us. That's civil.
Okay.
What's happening now is, because of flowing from what I've just told you now about ABSA setting this whole thing up to make it look like the targeted companies that they wanted to plunder on behalf of and with Charles Christodoulou, that these companies were sureties for Fantastic View that didn't have all the signatures of Stanley Goldwana or the resolutions.
So that's where I wanted to establish, because now what is the credibility of those documents that have been submitted?
They're null and void.
But they've been executed.
It's worse than that. Based on that, the same attorney who was acting for Charles Christodoulou, who wanted to organize a meeting for and on behalf of Charles Christodoulou, acting for Charles Christodoulou, Andrew Johnson. All of a sudden, when I don't want to meet with Charles Christodoulou and I don't want to do business with Charles Christodoulou, magically becomes the attorney of record for ABSA, for this alleged indebtedness of Fantastic View that doesn't exist, that is not lawful at all. The same attorney.
So the same attorney that was supposedly to be defending?
No, the same attorney that was negotiating for Charles Christodoulou.
Yes.
Now, when I refused, he now weaponizes ABSA.
Yeah, or he empowers ABSA with information that...
No, he alleges.
Or he alleges that the information is...
He alleges that together with Charles Christodoulou and the employees of the bank, that there is a lawful indebtedness, which there isn't. Flowing from that claimed lawful indebtedness, they state that the three targeted companies, where all the money and all the assets and all the properties lie, which is principally Theodore 119cc, was a co-surety. In other words, they fraudulently serve on the court that they have a right to sue, and that these other companies are sureties for it, and by fraudulently, this is organized crime that's fine-tuned. They now sue and they move in on those companies. I demanded proof. I did not know my own attorneys, and my right-hand man was involved with them. The upshot of all of this was the claimed purported orders then gets presented to me by my attorneys and my legal team. They were never in court even.
Hold on. Yeah, you can't get an order. You can only get an order in court. Is that correct?
That's why we got courts.
That's what lawyers are saying, that you can only get an order in court.
Supposedly
Can you get it in the chambers?
I'm not so sure about that, but according to the Judicial Code of Conduct, which I have here, anyone can download it. It's called the Code of Judicial Conduct, Government Gazette, number 35802. It was printed on the 18th of October 2012. I would suggest that every citizen in the country downloads this and that they do what we do. You take a ruler and you read it line for line. This now, this is the Code of Judicial Conduct adopted in terms of Section 12 of the Judicial Service Commissions Act of 1994. It's Act 9 of 1994. This says all court proceedings are open court proceedings. This says judges should avoid chamber chats as much as possible. If anything does happen in chamber that is material to the case that the judge presides over, the judge has to bring it into the record in open court.
Okay, that's what I wanted you to bring into this conversation regarding your matter. Don't you think that your orders were issued in chambers without sitting in an open court?
They were confronted about that. The same Code of Conduct says that every judge will give his ruling in writing with his reasons for that finding.
This is mind-boggling. My only concern.
In other words, there must be a typed written judgment with reasons. How does one appeal? Mandla,
No,
let's
that's
say you
what
go
I'm
to
saying.
court.
I wanted to ask for the clarity for our viewers. Did they execute that order till the end? And successfully?
They used fraudulent orders. Let me show you something.
No, I'm saying those fraudulent that we are saying
that
they
were never in
fraudulent.
court,
Yes.
never in front of a judge.
Yes.
They were manufactured.
No, hence I'm asking.
They executed them as if.
Hence I'm asking whether an order can be issued in chambers.
I'm not sure about that, but even if you do give an order in chambers, the judge has to give his written reasons.
Okay, so there were no written reasons?
No, it doesn't exist.
Okay, now let's go back to your story, because that implicates judiciary in a very hard way.
Big time.
In a very hard
Big
way.
time.
If you are saying on the dates that the orders were issued, there were no sittings. Was the court open or it was court on recess? Why do you come to that conclusion?
I'm going to give you the whole story. Number one, they were not on the court rolls.
Okay.
Number two, out of 4 separate cases and 3 separate dates, the dates on the purported orders being the 24th of July of 2018, the 14th, I believe the 14th of August of 2018, and the 22nd of August of 2018. So it's 4, 4, 4, 12 in total. There's not a single recording. Of course, You can't find a recording if it wasn't in court and it wasn't heard and it wasn't recorded.
Hence my question that maybe if it was issued in chambers, then
The judge
executed.
still has to in chambers.
But it was signed by a judge.
No,
Signed by who?
signed by Court Registrar in Bikicha. I have them here.
No, orders are signed by judges, not by
There's no
registrars.
judge that signed it.
But it was then taking all the way through.
All the way through.
Yeah.
It's called uttering. If you take a fraudulent document as a source document and you use that as if it is a lawfully obtained order, you then take it to the next step, which was the master, Flip van der Walt in Grahamstown. He now empowers and appoints a very carefully selected liquidator with the name of Kurt Knoop and Dali van der Merwe. Completely fraudulent, completely unlawful. They work with court orders all day and every day. Mandla, please. Now there comes one. If I can just point out what is damning. And this is damning for General Labaya, and this is damning for the judiciary. This is damning for Judge Zondo. This is damning for the state president. This is damning for the Minister of Justice. This is damning for everybody that can read and understand basic English. It's not my opinion. This is a media statement that was put into the public domain on the 2nd of February 2017 by the Office of the Chief Justice. I read it to you. The Office of the Chief Justice has noted with concern media reports alleging the use of fraudulent eviction orders in Rosettenville, Johannesburg. We're talking 2017. We also note that the use of fraudulent court orders extends beyond just eviction orders. In other words, not limited only to eviction orders, and that court orders have been falsified to achieve many other criminal ends. We don't need to debate it. The Office of the Chief Justice put this in the public domain. It's a media statement. Right. Now, when confronted with an alleged court order, members of the public, that's you and me, the victims, the food, the people being plundered, I stop to mention and say, why would any institution or any individual have to resort to fraudulent means of obtaining an order when the courts are there, due process must be followed, rules of court must be followed? Why then does one resort, or does an institution resort to fraudulent means to achieve their, as this puts it, many other criminal ends? In other words, you don't have a right to do.
So are you saying the South African judiciary has admitted that there's been a lot of untoward activities happening under the name or the banner of the judiciary in this country, in South Africa?
It's in writing.
That's what it means.
That's what
no,
it
I'm
means.
trying to
Yes,
just clarify.
Yes, that's what it means. But now I'm going to show every South African and every person on this continent that it's mere lip service. It's an admission. It's an acknowledgement, but it's pure lip service. Because I'm going to demonstrate that there's two reasons why South Africa is in this mess. Only two reasons. The police are corrupt and part of the organized crime system, and it's a closed loop, and the National Prosecuting Authority is also part of it. I'll give you a simple example. If you go and commit a bad crime, We're not talking about pickpocketing or something small. You commit a crime that is now, it is now deemed an international act of terrorism in most countries. And even in South Africa, it's now starting potentially borderlining the Poktatara Act, which is the Terrorism Act. Because it's now starting to become accepted that, and I'll read that for you out of the Judiciary Annual Report of 2017, that this has now become, then already, a threat to national security. I'm going to tie that up with the speech of our esteemed state president at the first handing over of the first part of the Zondo Commission. I will read that for you too. So we do not have to say that, is this what I'm saying? This is what they have already admitted to. But nothing is happening.
Okay. Let me just get to a point where we are able to conclude on the matter of your matter that is now being, you know, put in the High Court in Gauteng. Is that, have you received any dates in terms of what is going to
we
follow?
are in the process of filing this letter that went to General Labaya, flowing from all this fraud that has happened in Grahamstown. On the 26th, on or about the 26th of March 2021, myself and another forensic investigation firm by the name of Zondo Forensics went to, first we had 2 meetings with former head in the asset forfeiture unit of the NPA, Advocate Willie Hofmeyer. And well, thank God they like pictures. That's Advocate Willie Hofmeyer on the right-hand side there, well-known figure.
We'll be able to put it out for,
yeah,
for
and then we had 2 meetings with him, and then he instantly questioned me regarding all this fraud. It turned out at that stage, call it March 2021, at that stage he said, no, look, he was going to go and give evidence at the Zondo Commission regarding allegations into state capture. And he requested my permission to actually file all these fraudulent orders, which he instantly said, that's it. I gave the permission. I said, yeah, sure. And I fully expected to be summoned to give evidence at the Zondo Commission. After that, we went to General Labaya. That was on or about the 26th of March of 2021. That's the picture taken by General Labaya's PA in the front office. General Labaya handed myself and Isak Duvenage, handed us his personal card. We explained to him that we had 2 meetings, extended meetings with Advocate Hofmeyer, and that the findings were that they're fraudulent, and we presented General Labaya with a whole collection, actually, of fraudulent orders, more than just the 12 that I'm talking about now. He instantly, well, within a few seconds, concurred and said, yep, that's it. And he said words to the effect, what you have uncovered is sophisticated white-collar crime that may be too sophisticated for the DPCI and the National Prosecuting Authority to properly investigate. You drive it. By then he knew me.
Okay.
Sorry, us, myself and Isak.
Yeah. Now, this is the second one now. First one, it was the judiciary admitting that there is fraud happening in their...
In 2017.
On their behalf.
Yeah.
Now, this is 2021,
yes.
Which is, what, 3 years later, after 2017?
Yes.
The head of Hawks admits again, says to you that what we are presenting, it is definitely fraudulent.
Oh, accepted.
Then what has been done then about it?
oh no, I need to just give you a little bit more color. A decision was taken that instant cases wouldn't be opened. We just had a sense that there's more that's going to come out of it. You will find from all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of victims that when they start exposing fraud, attorneys, banks and stuff like that, they move in on them, and the liquidators, they move in on them with gagging orders. They intimidate them and they gagging orders, and then if you then talk more, they want to have you arrested for contempt of court, and you will be silenced in jail. You will be silenced. They did that with me. General Abaya and other generals know about that. I was reporting to them on an ongoing 24/7, 365 basis. For the last 4 years, I have not had a life. I have not watched rugby. I've not gone on nothing. It wasn't in the first place, not even safe for me to do so. Now, on one occasion at the Durban High Court, they attempted to have me arrested for not pitching up. Andrew Johnson, Craig Preston White, Advocate Adrian Collingwood, and a few others set the whole thing up so that on a particular day, after whatever, a couple of appearances, I was supposed to have appeared there for receiving an order from Judge Varhead that because they had made a big story, these attorneys, Johnson and all of them had made a big story that not even legal aid would represent me. Judge Varhead then said at that hearing, then I will give an order ordering legal aid to represent him. That's it. I was expecting that order, and of course it didn't come, and they were playing their games. On that particular day when I appeared again, it was in COVID, at the Durban High Court, where it was, by the Bay, Durban Bay area. What they did is they had a synchronized operation where the mirror of the vehicle that I was using was hit. They had a car guard that wasn't there before draw me away and say, come quickly, your car's been in an accident, within less than 20 seconds. The orderly who had come to me probably 5-6 times, what's your case number? What's your case number? The only one he came to. Never happened before, never happened since, didn't do it to any of the other people because they were letting in 5 people at a time. Came and he said that. And instantly when that car guard came and said, come, my heart jumped and I didn't go. 15 to 20 seconds later they called my case, so of course I go up. And I'm in the Durban High Court in a suit with a bulletproof vest on. And it was Judge Chili presiding. He was clearly, long story short, he was clearly visibly shocked that I was there. He said, are you Mr. Roodt? Are you Mr. Roodt? I said, yeah. And he was, it looked like he was shifting on his judge's chair like, I don't know. It was very uncomfortable. And eventually when my case came, I insisted on talking. And none of Andrew Johnson and none of the Adrian Collingwood and them weren't there. So they set the whole thing up to give me the impression they hadn't even pitched up. But the whole thing was stacked so that a contempt of court order would be signed so that I could then be taken to Westville prison. The cop van was waiting outside. Now, of course, the judge couldn't do that. But the judge was rattled because the plan didn't go according to plan. And I said, Judge, I'm here. But I don't know why I'm here. I was supposed to have at least 14 days before have received this order that I was told that Judge Varhead would order so that I could have gone to see legal aid as per that order that was expected. The judge started shaking around. He says, well, I have one here, but it's only one copy. Now, I was still learning about this. He tells the court orderly to go and make a copy. He sits with one, gives it to me. It was still in the process. It was a fraudulent order, still in the process of being manufactured. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had one look at this thing, And I said to the judge, now he's listening, it's motion court, he's listening to 4, 5, 6 other people. And he said, you can go, Mr. Roodt, can go, Mr. Roodt. He tried everything to get me to go. I said, I'll wait. When the time presented and they, 5 guys go out, I went to the mic and I said, Judge, this order here is fraudulent. He wouldn't talk. He was scared it was going to be recorded into the system. All of a sudden, he turned into one of these guys that do sign language. In his own court, it wasn't even signed by the registrar and it wasn't even stamped by the registrar. When I pointed that out to him, that was it. I then took that fraudulent order and sent it to legal aid to Advocate Andre Brits with a Z. I said to him, hey, Advocate, check this. Fraudulent order given to me by Judge Chile personally in his own courtroom. Now, in terms of Section 34 of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, I'm bringing that to your attention. You better report it as well to whoever you want to, but it's also mandatory that you report it to the Hawks. Tried 3 or 4 times to get me to just come. In other words, what I'm saying to you and I'm saying to the public, legal aid is part of the criminal syndicated system. Now, we go further. Having already identified via Advocate Hofmeyer and General Labaya this collection of fraudulent orders, the next hearing I jump up in that court, and I think it was a Judge van Amstel. Now Collingwood's back there, but I can tell you what, he's bouncing from pillar to post. Now I'm holding this up in the court. I said, this fraudulent order was given to me in this court, judge, right there where you sit on that chair, by Judge Chile. It's fraudulent. At that stage now, I had already contacted listen to this, the forensic department in the office of the Chief Justice. They fly down, the heads of the department, Ghazi and Ramako or something, I've got their names. They fly down. They come and see me at a hotel in Umhlanga Rocks. I give them all of that. I know these orders are fraudulent. They've been ruled fraudulent. The investigations are already done. What do? They certify them authentic. Now we have implicated the forensic department in the office of the Chief Justice, their heads. And so we knew that we were going to uncover more, but we never ever thought it would get to that.
So when they come to visit you in Durban, obviously it was to check the claim that you've put forward.
I had to do an affidavit.
That these orders are not the correct orders. They
had
illegal.
to go and check them and audit them.
Yeah, and then they took them away from you.
Yeah.
And then they came back to you and said, these are
emailed
legitimate.
me and said they were authentic.
They
walked straight into it, Mandla. They walked straight into it. We already knew that was it. But we had to first of all follow due process and protocol.
Yeah.
We never thought these guys would be that simple.
I want you to assist our viewers here in terms of educating them and educating us, including myself, in this thing. We are talking about fraudulent orders. For me, if I go to any court, any paper that they issue there, I'll never argue that this document might not be a legitimate document. That's number one. Number two, if a sheriff he rocks up to my property and then he says that he's the sheriff of the court, we know that they are the extension of the court. So you don't argue much. You just take whatever document that they present to you, then you vote. What I would like you to assist us is to say, how do you identify that these documents that get issued by sheriffs, by courts, supposedly courts, through lawyers, that they might not be legitimate documents that are that will stand scrutiny in the court of law?
That's a very good question. Now, first of all, every South African that deals with any bank had better start studying this whole lot. Anyone. remember one thing, that the legal profession, by and large, and I've heard this from attorneys, get 70 to 80% of their income because of bank work. They're on bank panels. Any attorney that is on any bank panel, you're dead if you go to an attorney to defend you against the bank. The attorney can't act for you against that bank because he won't get work again.
So if that's the first incident, check if the attorney that is representing you in the matter is in the panel of the banks.
Yeah, any bank, any bank.
Any bank.
Yeah, because they all work together. Okay, now you are going to battle to find one that is, there are some, because what happens if you go to an attorney is, they call it a slow puncture. All the attorneys, when you walk in there and you're being sued, they just see money and they inflict a slow puncture and they actually work with the other attorneys. You've got no chance. That's what happened to me. Okay? They bleed you dry until you sell your wife's jewelry, until you sell furniture, until you have, and that is part of the plan. It's called a slow puncture. So that you can be vulnerable and then they move in on you. And then, of course, as in my case, they just plain straight pieces of paper on white paper. And they're not even nicely done. They're not even, it's not even a good.
But they are stamped.
No. No.
They are not stamped.
No, no, no. Yeah, they are.
For the benefit of our viewers, we'll put them up.
Yeah.
So
it is mandatory. I need to backtrack so that this makes sense. This here can be downloaded by anybody. It's in public domain. It's issued by the Office of the Chief Justice, and it makes it very clear. This is very, very important. There was a court order integrity committee established in 2017. Terms of reference and purpose. At the meeting of the NEEC, concerns were raised about the prevalence of fraudulent activities. Now, discern carefully between a fraudulent order and fraudulent activities. Fraudulent activities are a little bit wider than just a fraudulent order. In other words, you can, through fraudulent activity, misrepresentation, corruption, shortcuts, breaking all the rules and all the law. Through fraudulent activities, you can, and they do, obtain what would purport to be an authentic order.
Okay. I want us to get to wrap around that issue. It was the Integrity Committee report that was issued. We have access to it because it's a public document.
It says this is a serious threat to access of justice and undermines the very integrity of the judicial system and the public confidence in the courts. Everybody in South Africa has every right now, with what's coming out by the hundreds, to say they have no trust in the courts whatsoever. There is no such thing as rule of law at all. It's being demonstrated by the hundreds. Now, very important. The committee was also mandated to investigate the possibility of educating the public on court processes and creating public awareness on the steps that must be taken to eradicate these fraudulent practices. They're acknowledging this. Now, we get a little bit further. Considering the significant impact fraudulent court orders have on access to justice in society, as well as the syndication of activity aimed at undermining the integrity of court orders, the committee engaged both the SAPS and the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the DPCI, General Labaya and the boys, on the issue. As a result, the production of fraudulent court orders was identified as a national priority offense, and the DPCI was tasked with the investigation thereof. Not the SAPS, DPCI. It was identified as a national priority offense. In closing with this one, the committee further recommended the introduction of a court order template with standard identifying features and the use of the judiciary emblem. 2017, 2018. Tell me where the judiciary emblem is. Let's go a little bit further. One more line. A unique court stamp with unique features that prohibit fraudulent duplication was designed for all superior courts. These recommendations were approved by the heads of court and has since been implemented. Not it is about to be implemented, it has been implemented in 2017.
2018.
Now, plain white paper, no judiciary emblem. No registrar stamp.
So, which stamp is that?
That is where my attorneys, Neville Borman and Botha, the sweetest little girl you've ever met in your life, Megan von Wilderman, I believe she's recently married, that she might be Kluti. And that's another attorney from the Kluti clan who's also implicated. We've got a list so long, I tell you what. I've been told this is the biggest criminal exposure in the history of judicial and banking exposure. Not my opinion. Now, if you have a look at that, there's none of them. But the most damning thing of the whole lot, Mandla, the most damning thing of the whole lot, if you actually have a look at this, it's the 24th of July. 2018.
2018, yeah.
I've got the printout here, which you can download. I must find it. It is just, they have made a monumental mistake. The courts were closed between, I think, the 2nd or the 3rd of July to the 29th of July for 4 weeks. All the courts, they were in recess.
During that period?
Now, with the building of the investigations and the pressure, because as we investigate, we include everybody. The minute we find out more people, we include them. We then, protocol says, and they put it in the public domain, anybody who suspects that there's a fraudulent order must approach the chief registrar and check and confirm. We do that. The chief registrar for the Grahamstown High Court's another very stunning young lady called Lauren Marshall-Reen. Any guy would love her as his daughter-in-law. What does she do? The pressure builds. The chief registrar, Lauren Marshall-Reen, and all her other registrars, including Bikicha, and the others in the other orders that I haven't brought you, they must have spent the whole weekend with the whole of Grahamstown judges and everybody manufacturing purported court rolls, because remember now, it's not on the court, on the normal court rolls in the investigation. It's not there. They manufacture it, and they try and bulldang us that it is so. Including, on the 24th of July, what they purport to have been a court roll with 43 cases before one judge in one day, when everybody's in recess. In other words, let them take note. There's 43 applicants. There's 43 defendants. 43 plus 43 is 86. Plus the judge alleged to have heard it. It's 87. If they all get subpoenaed, if the Hawks should do their work, you've got 87 people to subpoena. They did. They did.
Now, we know, for me, this is mind-boggling because, I mean, the order that you've just showed us now, we'll make sure that we put it up as well. it doesn't have the registrar stamp or the court stamp, but it's supposedly your attorney's stamp acknowledging
having receipt of it. It was
The
manufactured
document.
in their offices, man.
The document coming
Yes.
from the court.
Yes. Then they used that fraudulent document to go to the master, Flip van der Wal, to now appoint Kurt Knoop and Dali van der Merwe. As if it was now in court, as if the court had ordered it, and then the plundering started.
So never brought by, sheriff obviously
No, my
brought it to
attorneys, my attorneys
to
just
your
emailed
attorney's
it to me.
attention. And then your attorneys, then they receive it on your behalf. And
Supposedly.
Then they issue it to you.
Yeah.
And then you picked it up that there's something that is not.
No, we thought that this was all authentic, and we wanted to
okay.
appeal.
Okay.
We wanted to appeal because we knew this was wrong. We just thought that
Or
maybe
you're going
we
with
just
the myth that is not correct.
we thought
But-
that we had got a bad ruling, and we wanted to appeal. So in my own, limited manner, I try and put an appeal together. It gets served on Andrew Johnson, who's now the attorney of record, and it gets served in Grahamstown, and so on. And what happens? The 4 cases gets listed, and the judge president, Mbenengi, or the judge who purportedly gave most of the orders, Judge Jeremy Pickering, has now since retired. And that's where the wheels fell off for them.
Okay. Now they are found wanting with this whole process.
They found corrupt.
Okay. No, the court has not said that yet on your behalf, that they are corrupt. But your forensic investigation, it has confirmed that based on what the judiciary says, the head of Hawks says, and
Based on their documentation.
On their documents. Okay.
On their version.
So we're just waiting now for the affirmation from the court.
No. What's happening now? The problem now is, the problem that they have, not me. General Labaya knew about this from the 26th of March,
Okay,
2021.
I wanted us to just pinpoint on General Lebaya's issue, because it has come to our attention that you want to have a bone of contention with him?
No. What the decisions that were taken, not by me, but by I think there's 50 or just over 50 organizations that have now come together, because since we went public, and thanks to you guys and other guys, since we went public, many people and many organizations, Shamila and a lot of others, have come forward, and all this is now being exposed on a scale and a scope that you can't believe. And what they did before is they kept it all isolated. Now what we're doing is, because General Labaya knew about all this, he knew about the attempts on my life, he did nothing. And what we're doing now is we've identified that there's 2 problems in the country why it's in a mess. The Hawks aren't doing their work and the NPA aren't doing their work. I must be sitting, or the group, the Hornets must be sitting with, I'd say, probably 80, 90 cases, where we've even done the dockets. And the police officers will say, you don't have a case. It's not their place to do so. It has to go to the NPA. That police officer hasn't got that right to just say, I'm not investigating it. Now, if you should be fortunate enough to perhaps get your case to the NPA and a prosecutor, we haven't had 1 case prosecuted. It's stock standard procedure we decline to prosecute. No reasons given.
Don't you think there's an element of understanding this? I will call it a white-collar crime, kind of like crimes.
It is.
That maybe the Hawks and the NPA, they are not, even SAPs, they are not equipped, they are not empowered enough.
Then why don't
for them to
this is simple. We've done the work for them.
They can only easily...
We've done the work for them.
Yeah.
How do you, Mandla,
now,
there's those fraudulent orders. How can you not
on.
be equipped to see that is not a fraudulent order?
So hold on so we get clarity for our viewers. You investigate, who gives you a mandate for you to investigate?
General Lebeya personally gave it to myself and Isak Duvenage in his office on the 26th of March 2021.
So he gives
You have a right to investigate yourself, according to these documents.
he gives you the mandate,
Yeah.
a verbal or a written mandate.
That was verbal, in the presence of Isak Duvenage, and I have his affidavit right there.
He confirms that.
Yeah, yeah.
You say, go and investigate.
Yes.
And then
Report
after
back.
investigating,
And he gives us two generals, their names, their contact details, and he says, you tell them that they are supposed to assist you and work with you, and that I, being General Lebeya, will monitor it from head office. We did exactly that. I don't think the good general ever thought we would get as far as we did.
so has he turned back on that? Or he's still carrying it forward?
yeah. But now you must remember, I've been reporting on an ongoing basis. I have confidential emails, I have WhatsApps, I have probably 80 pages of WhatsApp, not only with General Lebeya, but Makanya, with Sonoma, with Ngwenya, with others as well. They're all on my phone, yeah. They're all downloaded, so there's no problem with that. Then about, we were now about, say, 2 weeks perhaps, don't hold me to the exact date. We got to the place where a lot of the victims had formed a basic plan of approach to approach General Lebeya and to make certain proposals to him. We contacted him, I contacted him, and I said, General Lebeya, I'd like to, I request an audience with you, 4 or 5 people to come and see you, and to give you the final, report, and also to make certain proposals to you, because there are ways that this can be fixed. The issue is not with our laws. The issue is with the people not enforcing our laws. Now you must remember, General Lebeya, I think, has got 4 or 5 degrees. He's an advocate, he's a doctor, he's a career cop. The man is highly qualified, highly educated. If you study his CV, his passion is organized crime. He hates corruption. He's been watching this, the attempts on my life. He's been reported to virtually on a daily basis. And he makes a mistake, and he answers me on a WhatsApp and says, please don't misrepresent that I have mandated you. I said, what?
So he's disputing that you ever
Now he's trying to get out of it.
Or that he's ever interacted
So
you.
either he's lying or I'm lying.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, he's got a major problem, because I've been reporting to him for the better part from the 26th of March 2021 on an ongoing basis. Also to the other generals. I have done everything. I've committed my life to this. Why did he not long ago say, who are you? What's this about?
Maybe he just wanted you to get him some information to get
He's got all the information, why doesn't he act on it? General Lebeya now, I'm accusing, straight up, on international television, as being in a position, unless he can show otherwise, of being in gross dereliction of duty, if not aiding and abetting serious crime that's put out by the Office of the Chief Justice. If not, intentionally concealing all of these things. Because everybody that can understand English can see that.
But that's a very serious allegation.
I'm making a serious allegation.
We are throwing on the head of
I'm
the
going further than that. This has also been reported to Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Incidentally, this was not, I was told, this was not brought out at the Zondo Commission for fear that it would collapse the South African financial system and the judicial system, quote unquote.
When it was heard at the Zondo Commission.
That's why it wasn't brought into the public domain.
That's the investigators now of the commission that were concerned that if they take it forward, then it will.
If it was brought into the public domain, it would have exposed Absa Bank, in my case, as an organized crime syndicate, by definition.
What actions are you taking against General Lebeya?
It's not just me. We have all, because you must remember there's now international agents involved, At the time when ABSA did this, started their nonsense, which was about April of 2016, they were still, the biggest owner in ABSA Bank at the time was Barclays. Barclays is one of the biggest banks in the world. They were informed. So they can't claim that they didn't know. So now, internationally, this has to be, and is already being investigated. We know that my phones are being tapped. We know that some of the agents, their phones are being tapped. We know that some of my laptops are being intercepted. It's not the only ones we're working with. A lot of people have come along and have come and helped and have said, right, okay, don't stop this. Let them listen. But here's what you do with the other guys. It's been openly reported that international agents are involved. It is mandatory in the other jurisdictions, like America, Britain, places like that. It is mandatory because these same things now implicate and impact on their entire financial system and their judiciary as well. And it's all starting to come out of the tin is just but opening up. It's a dustbin full of worms. It's not a can of worms. It's a lot worse than that. So this is all starting to come out. Now we also know, and we expect further attempts on the lives of, well, me being the number one target, but also on the other investigators who we protect. We've got whistleblowers inside the judiciary, inside the banks, inside the sheriff's offices, inside, you name it. They're now finding their courage and they're now coming forward and they actually now saying, hey, look here, look there, in the master's office, places like that, inside the deeds offices. You want to see the corruption in the deeds offices. You can't believe it. And the number one laundering place is the attorneys' trust accounts.
Now, General Lebea is being reported into the International Organized Crime.
It's in the process. He's being criminally charged. He was warned. He was given till
no.
This letter.
Who's criminally charging him now?
The Hornets.
Oh, the Hornets
and there's the people are standing in a line. There's all the entities that are now, and we're charging him personally. On the one side, criminally.
Yeah.
And we are also now going to file damages action against him personally. Not the police. Not all the cops are bad.
Is it in relation to your cases only?
Yeah, well, and other cases.
And I'm saying the cases that have brought to yourselves attention.
Yeah.
And people around.
Similar victims.
Similar victims.
They are now all going to sue him.
That's what you want to...
Yes, and we will identify the ones in the NPA. That if they decline to prosecute, and they don't give the reasons, and they don't give the Nolly prosecute certificate, they will be sued. And there's a major, major groundswell that's coming against them.
General Lebea, head of the Hawks in South Africa, you hear it for yourselves from IG World Network. We are not being put in a good fate. We hope you'll be able to redeem yourself on this one. We hope you'll be able to do the right where the wrong is being committed in this country. But
just before you close off.
Okay.
There is no country in the world that I know of. Help me right. Let anybody around the world correct me if I'm wrong. I'll make a public apology if I'm wrong. There's no country in the world where I have seen at the gathering of 2022, on the 24th of November, a public platform where there was a former general of the Hawks, Jeremy Veery, Advocate Anton du Plessis, Judge Dennis Davis, and maverick journalist Karen Dolly. Public platform. See it for yourself. Organized crime. We won't be able to prosecute ourselves out of this mess, says the NPA. It is an admission. We don't have to argue. South Africa is a failed state.
In closing, you are closing with the note. We'll put this one up. Is the former and the current heads, I mean, Judge Davis, you know, he still presides under over cases. So he agreed on the statement that the country is a failed state. And what then should the citizens of this country do?
Well, if you read, let's go to the Prevention of Organized Crime Act, and let's read the preamble to that. If you want to do it a little bit later, I'll do that for you. And you will see, I need to get back to Petro SA, the Central Energy Fund, and the Republic of South Africa, having done exactly with the same judge and the same registrar, exactly manufactured a fraudulent order against us as well. All this investigation uncovered that. And so what I'm saying to you now, by definition, 4 letters were written. We did not know it was going to turn out this bad. 4 letters were written. There they are. They're dated the 26th of November 2018. The one was to President Ramaphosa. The one was to his brother-in-law, Jeff Radebe, who at that time was the Minister of Energy. I don't know, they move around so much, I don't know what he's doing now. And of course, Minister Pravin Gordhan, who's Minister of State Enterprises. And at that time, Tito Mboweni was the Minister of Finances. They were emailed to them. They were also delivered by courier to their offices. There is an acknowledgement from the office of Minister Pravin Gordhan. Here it is. Acknowledging receipt. By definition, it was pointed out at that time that suspected crime was in progress via Petro SA. They were notified in order to inform them, in order for them to stop it, and in order for them to address it and to remedy it. They did not. Now we're sitting with Petro SA is owned by the Central Energy Fund, is owned by the Republic of South Africa. You have the Republic of South Africa as an organized crime state, by definition, under RICO and also under the Global Magnitsky Act. And this was tested.
So you're summing it up by saying not only that the South Africa as a country is a failed state, but it's an organized crime, you know, it's a crime scene, if I may put it that way.
The whole country.
The whole country.
The whole of Parliament.
It's a crime scene. But I want to assist, more especially viewers in South Africa, to say we are going into, they are going into elections in 2024. What must they do?
I would personally, if I was a South African citizen, they must all stay away from the polls. They mustn't cast one ballot. Because, in my view, I have no political aspirations. My personal view, and many others concur, I think all politics are dirty. I think the whole of Parliament's captured. My personal view is it doesn't matter what label is sitting in the benches, they're all captured. It doesn't matter. If you walk down an aisle in a department store and you go down where the dishwashing liquid is, and there's 12 different types of dishwashing liquid. The ones red, green, pink, blue, and so on. But they all belong to the same company that made them, if you read the label at the bottom. It's called a captured situation.
You hear it, South Africans. It's your call, whether you go and vote or you not vote. But Mr. Johann Roodt is advising you stay away, because it doesn't mean that the political party system is still relevant today. But we are just going to close by giving Johann an opportunity to just, there are 3 things that I would like you to just share with our viewers. Number one is the issue of the judiciary, to say your stance now regarding the judiciary. Two is the issue around the Hawks and the NPA in South Africa. And lastly, the issue around SAPS, because remember, that's where the investigation starts, at the grassroots level, when you just enter into a police station to record a matter.
Right.
What must South African citizens do? Okay, welcome back, Africa. We are continuing with our interview with Johann Roodt, and we've said earlier on there was an element of his interview that we did touch on it very brief, but we just want to now get into more details on it, which is the matter that we initially engaged him on, and he was able to divulge, and then saying now they've gone, I don't know to what level and how far. And Johann, you can just take us back into now your personal matter in terms of your case. How far have you gone?
Okay, sis. Just as a kickoff, if I may just read the preamble only to the POCA Act. It's called the Prevention of Corrupt Activities Act. It's basically a template that is used worldwide. It's the apex, it's considered worldwide to be the apex crime fighting law, which is really almost a template of the RICO, the International RICO Act, where, let me just, this is the preamble only. I don't want to go into definitions and stuff like that, but to give clarity to the viewers and to the man in the street, exactly how serious these matters are and how devastating they are, not only on the victims, but that everybody, every citizen in South Africa is actually, whether they know it or not, is actually being plundered. I'm going to give you the example. When I was a young man and I finished matric, you bought an American dollar for 74 cents. In other words, for 74 Rand, you bought $100. Today, I'm not sure what the exchange rate is. It must be something like 19. Okay, so now if you work that out as a factor, it's probably 35 to maybe close to 40 times that the Rand has, times, not percent, times, that the Rand has actually lost value on the world market. Now, even though you may not be a figures person, what it basically means that when I finished school, you could, for the same amount, buy, say, 35 or 40 times the same value of any given commodity for a given amount of Rand. Now, the Rand has so devalued against all those other currencies that it's the American US dollar or any other currency that comes into South Africa now buys 40 times more than what it did for. In other words, if you bought a house for, let's say you bought a car for 1,000 Rand back in the day, that overseas person that comes down to South Africa can buy 40 cars for the same money he would have paid then. He gets 40 times, which is 4,000% increase. Now the obvious question is, well, currency devalues. But then, why did it not devalue also for the American dollar? Why did it not devalue for the Australian dollar? Why did it not devalue for all the others? In other words, South Africa is being stolen blind. The citizens of South Africa are being stolen blind, whether they know it or not, because they're paying more and more and more and more. And we really now are the frogs in the water. The proverbial frog in the water. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what you are. Unless you're in a position to steal, if you're an honest person, you are being stolen from, you are being devalued, and of course, loans are being made or purportedly being made, and the money's leaving the country. There's only one avenue for money to come into this country or to go out of this country. No first prizes. It's called the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank is in private hands. It doesn't belong to the people of the country. I'll leave that. Much has been said on that already. Now, just as an intro, the preamble to the Poker Act, it's Act 121 of 1998. You can download it. It's in the Government Gazette. It was printed on the 4th of December 1998 in Cape Town, number 19553. The preamble, it's a short little speech. It says there, whereas the Bill of Rights in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, Act number 108 of 1996 enshrines the rights of all people in the Republic and affirms the democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. It's a beautiful law. It was at that time, we were making history with President Mandela, and the Constitution was perceived to be, I mean, they were lauding our Constitution. And it is a good Constitution. Whereas the Constitution places a duty on the state to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights in the Bill of Rights. It's a duty. Every citizen has a right to demand this. And whereas there is a rapid growth of organized crime, this was in 1998, money laundering and criminal gang activities nationally and internationally. And since organized crime has internationally been identified as an international security threat, and whereas organized crime, money laundering, and criminal gang activities infringe on the rights of the people as enshrined in the Bill of Rights, and whereas it is a right of every person to be protected from fear, intimidation, and physical harm caused by the criminal activities of violent gangs and individuals. And whereas the South African common law and statutory law failed to deal effectively with organized crime, money laundering, and criminal gang activities, and also failed to keep pace with international measures aimed at dealing effectively with organized crime, money laundering, and criminal gang activities, and bearing in mind that it is usually very difficult to prove the direct involvement of organized crime leaders in particular cases, because they do not perform the actual criminal activities themselves. It is necessary to criminalize the management of and related conduct in connection with enterprises which are involved in a pattern of racketeering activity. In other words, we're talking top management. It is necessary to criminalize the management of and related conduct in connection with enterprise. And whereas persons should not benefit from the fruits of organized crime and money laundering, legislation is necessary for the preservation and forfeiture of property which is deemed in the commission, which is concerned in the commission or suspected commission of an offense. This says it all. It's not in difficult English. What is now being uncovered is patterns of racketeering, case after case after case after case. As mentioned before, Strauss Daily features so much that in the one case that we handled of a Mr. Eugene Halliday, we referred to a judgment made by, in the Durban High Court by Judge Madam Enriquez, where she took the, it was also Standard Bank, I believe it was 8880, I think it was 2021 or 2022, I've got it here somewhere. she was scathing against the advocates and the attorneys of Strauss-Daly on the one hand, and the Standard Bank employees on the other hand. She addressed the issue that the founding affidavit, which is usually done by the banks when they initiate legal action against individuals, that the founding affidavit by the person who deposed to the affidavit is tantamount to perjury. It's scathing. She further went on to make it a court order that the attorneys and advocates had to be reported to the Legal Practices Council. Now, would you believe that we now have, that I know of, I think another 7 or 8 cases by exactly the same attorneys of Strauss-Daly, by exactly the same employees of Standard Bank, or a lot of them common to all the other cases that are now unfolding. And you now find evasive action being taken by Standard Bank by supposedly ditching Strauss-Daly. But I can tell you what, that's all smoke and mirrors, because the conduct, the unlawful conduct here, is all basically the same by all the attorneys of all the firms. Now getting back to my cases, what we have uncovered is, I need to just point this out. I was asked the question, well, what if these orders were given in chambers?
Yeah, we did ask, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. The Judicial Code of Conduct makes it very clear that chambers should be avoided in the first place. And if anything does happen in chambers, it must be put on record. If it has any bearing whatsoever on the matter, it has to be put on record in open court. Okay, that's the first thing. However, the pressure so mounted on attorney Andrew Johnson and Mike van der Veen from Wildens in Wilden, Rushmere and Cole, and advocate Knott in Grahamstown. The pressure mounted so much, and APSA and the big guns in APSA like Jean Pretorius and particularly Martinus Janssen van Rensburg, Heike Meyer, they put so much pressure on these people that they went and deposed to affidavits, sworn affidavits, that they were personally at the seat of the court at the giving of these orders, and they were obtained in open court.
So they're confirming what you are alleging that it was not correct.
They are swearing, they are perjuring themselves, saying that they were in open court at the giving of these orders. But
they might prove it. They might prove it to you.
I tell you what,
the court record.
If there's no court records to prove it, but I have a court record, yeah.
Okay.
From the Government Gazette number 36573, printed on the 21st of June 2013, that says that the courts were all in recess from the 2nd of July to the 29th of July. I come back to the 4 purported orders that, number one, don't bear the mandatory judiciary emblem at the top, and that, I mean, if the registrar hasn't even stamped it with a registrar stamp, you're walking around with an unsigned check that you're trying to cash, at best. Now, for attorneys to say they were in, number one, in open court, they were personally there. How could they have been in open court on the 24th of July?
They don't have emergency sitting in court. Emergency sitting. Urgent matters.
43 cases. On a fraudulent court, 43 cases. On
Which
the
court does 43 cases in one day?
I don't know which judge can handle it. Nobody's ever seen one judge do 43 cases.
I mean, even if we cover stories, I mean, luckily you will get matters.
Well, I've seen 20.
If they goes to,
I've seen 20, I've seen 30. But that's quick, motion court. That's not hearing full trials.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Okay, so if it's a motion court, so they can do 100. They just keep.
Well, no, I haven't seen that much. You know, judges like to take tea breaks and stuff like that. But 43, on the 24th of July, when the Government Gazette says that the courts were in recess in the first place, then the issue of could it have been given in chambers is shot out of the water. It's shot to hell. Because the Code of Judicial Conduct says it has to be put on record in open court. So that whatever takes place in chambers has to be put on record in open court in the first place. Secondly, there is no way that a judge is going to sit and type a 10 or 12 or 17 page judgment on 4 cases on the same day when there's 43 listed.
Wow.
It's not possible.
Okay.
And on the judiciary's own paperwork there, mandatory for that logo to be on top and mandatory for that registrar's stamp to be there. I didn't say it. It's mandatory. And that judicial report says that it has already been implemented and is being implemented and it is being used. There's no way around it, Mandla.
Okay. Now, let's get to the 3 aspects that I was referring to earlier on. You made some serious allegation. Is the Republic of South Africa accusations? Republic of South Africa.
Yes.
And can we just cover that up?
Let's focus on that.
So that it becomes very clear to our viewers in terms of what we are trying to achieve with this expose, because this is exposition of some serious crimes that have been committed.
Never seen anywhere else in the world before that I know of or that anybody else knows of. Okay? I'm open to correction on that. And I invite anyone from government, from the state president, right down to any of the judges to show otherwise. I call them out. Once we discovered and we found out, whoa, this is a hotbed of corruption in the Grahamstown High Court, I then went further, or we went further, I shouldn't take the credit for that, and we discovered that Petro SA, wholly owned by the Central Energy Fund, wholly owned by the Republic of South Africa, did exactly the same and manufactured a fraudulent court order. The case number is 3352/2012. And would you believe it? It's the same corrupt Judge Jeremy Pickering, whose name appears on it. It is the same corrupt Registrar Bekicha, whose name appears on it. And see if you can see a logo and see if you can see a registrar stamp. Now, this fraudulent order was obtained after Petro SA, the attorney from Fairbridges in Cape Town, I believe it's the oldest law firm in the country. I think it was founded in 1812. Aletta Peterson acted for Petro SA. They applied for summary judgment in the Grahamstown High Court in 2013. There or thereabouts. And summary judgment was refused by Madam Robertson. Not T. The T is missing. Madam Judge Robertson. It was refused. No problem to Petro SA and the Central Energy Fund and all of them. They just went to Judge Jeremy Pickering and Bekicha and manufactured it afterwards. So they didn't get summary judgment. They went and manufactured it afterwards.
And the date?
The date on this one purports to be the 10th of November 2014. Okay. No court roll, no recording, no nothing, no written judgment, zip. Then you ask yourself, well, what is the purpose of doing this? This fraudulent purported order was then used. Now it shows you what the state was after me for. This is me. They took this totally fraudulent order and then produced another alleged personal suretyship for this amount. The advocate that handled this is Advocate Williams. She was also the advocate, together with the attorney Adele Peterson, who applied for summary judgment when the thing started. No problem. They go and they manufacture this thing. They take this fraudulent order. The motive of it is they now produce a purported personal suretyship by myself. And they come to the Durban High Court, and in front of Judge Madam Bolton, the founding base cornerstone is this fraudulent order, which Judge Bolton can see is fraudulent. I mean, she's a judge of the High Court. My own attorney is Andre Kitching. My advocate, Alan Bull. They all can see. It's the first document. They say judgment was given against me or against the company. They produce a purported surety. They can't produce the original document. It's a photostated thing. When they applied for summary judgment and they launched this against Fantastic View, they didn't cite me as a second respondent and as a co-surety to start off with. They manufactured it afterwards. But using this fraudulent order, Judge Bolton, my own attorneys, Andre Kitching, and that can see it's fraudulent. They are professionals. They obtain a judgment against me personally for almost 11 million rand. Totally fraudulent.
Based on the order that was
Based
not
on this
arrested.
purported order. In other words, it's absolute, total organized crime.
But
Adding
it's
that-
again with the company that is implicated here is the company that you have a business partner in.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
Stanley Godwana.
Yes. Yes.
But is
Yes.
not cited now. when
He's,
they're
yeah,
dealing
he's
with
also
you.
not cited. He's also not cited. Exactly. Now we bring into question, remember Andrew Johnson does a lot of work for ABSA and Investec. It's on his website. Anybody can see it. And he views himself as somewhat of a ninja. He's very good with getting human traffickers and stuff like that off. And he's very proud of it. Of course, everybody has a right to legal representation and stuff like that. And if my memory serves me right, it's always a technicality. But be that as it may, this is absolute. It shows every South African has got absolutely no chance. Now the question now is, they started with the cops in Flagstaff. They took it further. Andrew Johnson and Charles Christodoulou had the ability to influence Petra SA to not supply us for fuel for 3.5 months, setting the thing up in such a way that via ABSA, I was told, and I believed it at the time, that Stanley Godwana had organized a facility with ABSA for a bank guarantee for Shell to get a replacement. The papers were put in front of me. I signed them. I was told it was all organized. He's a 60% partner. I'm a minor shareholder of 40%. I was told that he organized it, everything. It sounded like a good deal. And I signed that. He never came and signed it. But here's this thing. They needed to inflict a slow puncture.
Okay.
Clive Pillay of ABSA says a condition to this is that a policy must be taken out with Liberty Life to the tune of 100,000 a month. It's a condition, which I didn't like, but I thought, oh well, all right, then so be it. They knew, because ABSA was doing all our banking, they knew that all the companies were interlinked, and they knew that we needed that fuel. So they knew the need, identified the need, and knew how to set the trap. What I had forgotten, in hindsight, is that I had already secured a second bond over one of my properties in favor of Petro SA to the tune of 72 or 73 million rand. ABSA, by the mouth of Clive Pillay, said, you need to get this policy in place, because one day, when you sort your dispute with Petro SA out, because they had over-invoiced and wrong invoiced and got products wrong and so on, so there was a dispute of fact. When they get this right, you need to have the money to pay them. I had forgotten, under all that pressure, that there was no need for that, because I had already given Petro SA security over my property of 73 million, which Petro SA had valued, which Petro SA found the value in, as did ABSA, and ABSA had to give consent to that second covering bond, because ABSA was the first bondholder.
Yeah.
So ABSA knew exactly that I had a small bond of 1 million over this property. They knew, because they had to give consent for Petro SA to secure a second covering bond. In other words, Petro SA was fully secured, no matter what happened. We were strong-armed, I was strong-armed, and I was lied to and deceived into a condition for getting that guarantee in place to get fuel from Shell, that this policy had to be taken out. There was no need for the policy in the first place. Secondly, how could ABSA possibly have known what the quantum would be once we actually came to a sorting out of the whole lot? If you go and you buy a car or a house or something, you have a known capital amount that you borrow for out, what's the period of repayment, what's the interest rate, and you can say, Mandla, this car's going to cost you 4,000 Rand, 4,200 Rand. There was no way, there was none of that was in place. It was a setup all the way to inflict that slow puncture. But it shows you the absolute scientific setting up of the approach. So when a lady came around to our place of business, who was, I can't remember her name, she was, I'd never met her before, heard her name. And she sat with my staff and I, and she introduced herself, and she said she's the national sales manager for Petro SA. And she had now come to discuss what's going on with this account. And we said, look, we haven't been supplied and all that. Yeah. We were told by Petro SA that they couldn't supply because there was a problem with the offloading of crude at the buoy and in Durban, and I don't know, the offloading facilities were problematic. She told us that, she asked, first of all, she asked me, well, why didn't you phone me? I said, well, I didn't even know you exist. But she said there was never ever a supply problem. In other words, they had the ability from the inside of our group to identify where we were buying, who we were buying, and Petro SA, or people within Petro SA, were influenced to not supply, to put the pressure so that we could go the Shell route, so that they could inflict the slow poison thing by demanding. The whole thing was planned to stop all the cash flow and the income streams, to maneuver us into a corner, so that ABSA could then come with their story.
Okay, now you uncover this when we are investigating now.
Yes.
And now you are adding it to the next pile or supplementary affidavit on your initial affidavit.
Yes. We are now happy and satisfied that, look, there are so many accused. I think, bearing in mind that I read out of POCA, PRECA and all of that, and that the individuals who are informed and who know about even alleged fraud and corruption over 100,000, it's mandatory for them to report. It also is very clear that the entities themselves, if their senior officers and office bearers and directors and senior managers are aware and don't report and don't actually fix any crimes in progress, that the entity itself becomes, as an entity, liable for organized crime and so on. Okay?
Now you have all the people that are implicated on that.
There must be in total 3,500, mostly attorneys, advocates, judges, people
so you are now going for all of them?
Well, we have to do this in bite-sized pieces. You know, crocodiles can only eat so many people at a time.
So individually, we are following up, we are pressing charges against them?
Yeah. First of all, we have to go for the problem, as I said earlier, the problem in South Africa is we've got these wonderful laws. They're good. They run parallel to international laws. But there is no law enforcement. And in fact, the people that, generally speaking, the people that are in place to enforce the law, for example, General Abaya and the National Prosecuting Authority, if they don't do their job, and if they don't prosecute, this is a doomed country and nothing's going to happen. And that is what we are sitting with. I am calling it out now. I'm looking, General Abaya, the other generals, the National Prosecuting Authority, Rodney de Kock, the whole lot, Amal, Minister Lamola. Anybody step forward, show me I'm wrong. I'm inviting you. I'll give you a public apology.
Yeah. Africa will hear it, South Africans will hear it. Johann Roodt is calling all the ministers. One thing that we had on an interview earlier on is that even the ex-military are being called on in this regard to support and put, you know, the word of support, their weight behind the wrongs that have been done in this country. But once again, Johann, it's always a pleasure from us to have a chat with you, because it's, number one, it's very educational to our viewers. Number two, it's assisting the South African justice system, police system, intelligence to pull up their acts in terms of what is supposed to be happening. Because at the moment, you know, it seems that the wheels are coming off. But, you know, for some, but for others, they are not. For us as a channel, we always say that we just want to see justice, and justice for, as our constitution say, everyone is equal before the law.
Well, in print it is so. In fact, we have an organized crime state supported by an organized crime judiciary, generally speaking. There are some judges and presiding officers that are helping. There are some masters that are helping. We protect them. There are some very good people that are helping. I'd like to close off with a definition of a failed state. A failed state becomes that when it is unable to perform the two fundamental functions of the sovereign nation state in the modern world system. It cannot project authority over its territory and peoples, and it cannot protect its national boundaries. The governing capacity of a failed state is attenuated such that it is unable to fulfill the administrative and organizational tasks required to control people and resources, and can provide only minimal public services. That should get everybody's attention. Its citizens no longer believe that their government is legitimate. I have read the preamble to POCA. And the state becomes illegitimate in the eyes of the international community. I have stated why we are now an organized crime country, an organized crime republic. A failed state is composed of feeble and flawed institutions. The Hawks, the NPA. They've admitted failure. Often the executive barely functions, while the legislature, judiciary, bureaucracy and armed forces have lost their capacity and professional independence. We had the investigations into the allegations of state capture. Oh, you want to read President Ramaphosa's? That's another story for another day. A failed state suffers from crumbling infrastructures, faltering utility supplies and educational and health facilities, and deteriorating basic human development indicators such as infant mortality and literacy rates. Most of the cops can't read, I'm told. That's children, illiteracy rates. Most of the cops can't read, I'm told. Failed states create an environment for flourishing corruption and negative growth rates, where honest economic activity cannot flourish. You don't need to come first in class to work this out. The dynamics leading to and compounding state failure are many and varied, including civil war, God help us, ethnic violence and genocide, we've got lots of that, and predatory government and bureaucratic behavior. I have just demonstrated predatory government and bureaucratic behavior. And I invite them to show otherwise. Don't give me mere denials. Show me. State failure comes in degrees and is often a function of both the collapse of state institution and societal collapse. We're in danger of a societal collapse. A strong state provides core guarantees to its citizens and others under its jurisdiction in the three interrelated realms of security, economics, and politics. A failed state cannot maintain a monopoly on the legitimate use of violence and minimize internal conflict. It cannot formulate or implement public policies to effectively build infrastructure and deliver services or effective and equitable economic policies. In addition, it cannot provide for the representation of political empowerment of its citizens or protect civil liberties and fundamental human rights. Thus, state failure manifests itself when a state can no longer deliver physical security, a productive economic environment, and a stable political system for its people. The total collapse of the state marks the final extreme phase of state failure. And very few states can be described as completely failed or collapsed. Yet, research demonstrates that many states suffer from various degrees of weakness and are therefore potential candidates for failure. I would suggest you, South Africa is now at top of that pile. Weak states were failing with increasing frequency, most often and most of them in Africa, but also a handful in Asia and the Middle East. And failed states are known to be hospitable to and to harbor dangerous non-state actors such as warlords and groups that commit terrorist acts. We were grey listed because of money laundering for terrorist organizations.
Yeah.
For example, at the end of the 20th century, Somalia descended into state collapse under rival warlords, and Afghanistan, a failed state under the Taliban regime, harbored the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. Furthermore, state failure poses pressing humanitarian issues and possible emergency relief and state-building responsibilities for the international community. Consequently, understanding the dynamics of state failure and strengthening weak nation states in the developing world assumed new urgency. We are now an international problem.
We have failed as a nation, we're failing as a country, I don't know, we are failing as a continent. It is the indications that have been brought to you, and the challenge has been thrown to the South African government to say that you are a failed state, otherwise you come and prove Mr. Johann Roodt otherwise. Otherwise, he is adamant that South Africa, it is a failed state. From everything that we are seeing, the infrastructure, the investigations that are collapsing, everything that is happening in this country, the muggling of resources when it comes to investigation, everything is not going the way that everybody expects to happen in Africa. It is now the time of the show that we have to say our goodbyes, and we would like to thank Mr. Johann Roodt once again for taking so much time and have this sit down with us to be able to go through all this process and update us on the previous discussions that we've had. We really appreciate that, and we hope that our viewers, they are continuously learning from our engagements, and we hope that everything according to your plan in terms of your further investigations that you are doing, it goes successfully. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Mandla, and thank you to your viewers. You're always very gracious, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you.